What would you do if at 2 a.m., you got a call from the police telling you that you have a 6-year-old daughter who's been abused, a child you never even knew existed? And if, during Christmas dinner, while the whole family's gathered around the table, your mom stands up, looks straight at that child, and calls her a weed who doesn't deserve to carry this family name, would you stay silent or speak up? In that moment, for the first time in 36 years, I chose to speak up. I decided to become a man rather than stay a good little boy forever. But in the end, no child is to blame, and sometimes they're the ones who turn everything around, leading to an ending none of us saw coming. Before I get into the details of this story, let me say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for taking your precious time to follow this story. I hope you have a day filled with happiness. Could you give me a like if you want to wish me the same? Hello everyone. I'm Declan, 36 years old. I'm a plumber in Lakewood. Regular job, everyday life. Sloan and I have been married for 7 years. 7 years trying to have a kid. 7 years of single-line pregnancy tests, doctor appointments, nights when Sloan would cry in the bathroom while I stood outside the door, not knowing what to do. But that night changed everything. 2:17 a.m. The phone on the nightstand buzzes. Unknown number. Colorado Springs area code. Usually I'd hang up, but for some reason that night, I picked up. The man's voice on the other end was deep and slow. He introduced himself as a detective with Colorado Springs PD. He asked if I was Declan Mercer, then kept talking without waiting for me to confirm. We have a 6-year-old girl named Ren here at the station. Her stepfather just got arrested for child abuse. In her backpack, there's a letter saying you're her biological father. I shot up in the middle of the night, heart pounding like it was going to explode. I've never had kids. They must have the wrong guy. But then the detective read the name of the person who wrote the letter. Noelle Vance. Hearing that name, the whole room started spinning. Noelle, my ex from 7 years ago. The girl I almost married before I met Sloan. The detective kept talking, his voice sounding like it was coming from another world. The child's mother passed away from cancer 8 months ago. She's been living with her stepfather since then. I don't remember what I said to end that call. I remember sitting there in the dark, looking at Sloan still sleeping next to me, hair spread across the pillow, breathing steady. She didn't know the storm was coming. She didn't know our lives were about to get torn apart. I scribbled a quick note on the pillow. Emergency, I have to go. I'll call later. Then I grabbed my car keys and drove 2 hours through the night, heading to Colorado Springs. My head was spinning with 1,000 questions. Was Noelle dead? She had a kid with me and didn't tell me? How has this child been living for the past 6 years? At 4 a.m., I got to the police station. The detective handed me the letter. The paper was crumpled, the creases worn almost to the point of tearing. Proof that someone had opened it and folded it back up many times. Noelle's handwriting was still the same as before, slanted and a little shaky. In that letter, she wrote, Declan, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. Ren is our daughter, the result of that night we met again before your wedding. I know I should have told you a long time ago. I'm sorry. I told Ren always to keep this letter in her backpack. If something happens to her, give it to the police. You're her last hope. I read it 3 times, last hope. A 6-year-old I'd never even seen, and I was her last hope. The detective led me to a small room at the end of the hallway, and there, on a blue plastic chair way too big for her tiny body, I saw her for the first time. Ren was huddled up like a sparrow in winter, both arms wrapped tight around an old, faded stuffed bunny. Brown hair is all messy. Her arm showed finger-shaped bruises. One side of her face was red and swollen. But what made me go silent were her eyes. Dark brown, deep as anything, precisely like the eyes I see in the mirror every morning. She looked up at me, her expression both scared and hopeful, like a kid who's way too used to being disappointed but still can't stop hoping. In that moment, something in my chest broke apart and put itself back together in a completely different way. I didn't need a DNA test, didn't need anyone to explain anything else. Looking at her, I knew this was my daughter, and I was going to protect her no matter what. I sat down in the chair across from her, trying to get down to her eye level, and said as gently as I could, Hey, sweetie, I'm Declan. I'm your dad. For the first time in my life, I introduced myself as someone's dad. And weirdly, it didn't feel awkward at all. Felt right. More right than anything I'd said in 36 years. That night, I brought Ren home. I didn't know how to raise a kid, didn't know how to explain this to Sloane, didn't know what the future would look like. I only knew one thing. I wasn't gonna let this little girl be abandoned one more time. 3 months later, I brought Ren to my parents' house for Christmas dinner. And that's when everything exploded. That was also the time my mom, Colleen, refused to meet Ren. I still remember the first time I called to tell her the news. I was standing in the kitchen, Ren sleeping on the sofa after another night of nightmares, and I was trying to find a way to explain everything to my mom. I told her the whole story slowly and anxiously. She listened in silence. Then, before hanging up, she said just one thing. That kid? I don't want to see her face. The dial tone rang out, and I stood there frozen with the phone in my hand, not knowing what to do next. But eventually, after dozens of calls, after my dad, Hugh, played mediator, she agreed to let us come for Christmas dinner. I naively thought that was a good sign, that maybe she'd cooled down, that maybe seeing Ren, she'd change her mind. But maybe I was wrong. The drive from Lakewood to Aurora only takes about 30 minutes. But that day I drove slower than usual. Ren sat in the back seat, both arms wrapped around her stuffed bunny Clover, eyes looking out the window. She asked me for the third time, Dad, will Grandma like me? I looked at her through the rearview mirror, forced a smile and answered. She just needs time to get used to you, sweetie. That was the first time I lied to my daughter. When we parked in front of the house on Peoria Street, I noticed everything was the same as it had been every year. The 7-foot tree behind the living room window, with white LED lights blinking, and a wreath hanging on the door. The smell of roast beef drifts from inside. My sister Tessa's car and her husband Perry's were already parked in the driveway. Mercer Family Christmas, the 36th version of my life. The only difference was that this year, there was Ren. She gripped my hand tight as we walked up the front steps, her tiny fingers squeezing like she was afraid I'd disappear. Over the past 3 months, I'd gotten used to this feeling and to her always needing to know where I was, used to waking up to soft sobbing from the next room and used to learning how to do ponytails from YouTube videos at 2 a.m. because she liked having her hair done the way her birth mom used to. And maybe the DNA test results had stopped me from asking any more questions. In the end, I just wanted to protect her, wanted to watch her grow up, wanted to be a father, even if it might cost me more than I'd gain. 3 months isn't long, but it was enough for me to understand what being a dad means. The door opened. My mom stood there in a red sweater, silver hair neatly curled. She looked at me, then her eyes shifted down to Ren. I could clearly see the way she studied her from head to toe, like she was looking at a stain someone had accidentally stepped on her spotless white carpet. She didn't say hello, sweetie. She just turned around and walked inside. Come in. The food's getting cold. In the living room, my dad was sitting in his armchair by the fireplace. He looked up at me, nodded once, then looked back down at his newspaper. Tessa stood by the Christmas tree with Perry. Both pretended to be busy checking their phones when I walked in. Only Josie, Tessa's 4-year-old daughter, ran over with the innocent curiosity of a child. She pointed at Ren and asked loudly, Mom, who's this girl? But before Ren could react, Tessa quickly pulled her daughter away, voice quiet but loud enough for me to hear. Josie, come here to me. Don't go running around. Ren shrank behind me, eyes alert like a sparrow smelling a stray cat. Dinner started in an atmosphere heavy as lead. I pulled out a chair for Ren to sit next to me and cut her food into small pieces. Like always, she ate slowly, one bite at a time, chewing silently. It was a habit from her days living with that stepfather, who taught her that eating too fast or making noise was an excuse to get punished. Watching the way she held her knife and fork so carefully, almost trembling, I remembered those first few weeks. Ren used to apologize for saying she was hungry, used to huddle in the corner of the room whenever I turned off the lights, used to wake up in the middle of the night, screaming from nightmares, then apologize for bothering me. But after everything, she'd started to trust me and started taking my hand on her own when crossing the street, started calling me Dad, even though her voice was still shy, like she was afraid of being rejected. And I really hoped, that my family would give her a chance. But looking at my mom's eyes across the dinner table, I knew that hope was really fragile. Throughout the beginning of the meal, there was only the sound of knives and forks hitting plates, Josie occasionally babbling with her doll, and the wall clock ticking steadily. Then my mom put down her knife and fork. Slowly. Every movement was calculated beforehand. She looked straight at me and asked a question I'd been trying to avoid all evening. Where's your wife? Why didn't Sloane come? My mom's question rang out across the dinner table, freezing everyone. Ren looked up at me, eyes worried. She was always sensitive to tense atmospheres, like a radar program to detect danger. Actually, this wasn't the first time I'd been asked this question. As soon as I walked in the house, Tessa glanced around and asked me, Sloane's not coming? I dodged it with a casual answer. She's busy at the hospital. Then, when we sat down at the table, my dad also quietly spoke up. Sloane's not coming home. I just nodded vaguely, then pretended to be busy cutting Ren's food. But my mom was different. She didn't accept half answers. I put down my knife and fork, took a deep breath, then said, Sloane, she needs time. My mom frowned, voice sharp and cold. Time? It's been 3 months. Tell the truth. She left you, didn't she? I didn't answer, but my silence said everything. In that moment, my mom sighed with contempt, her eyes glancing at Ren, then dropping a cold statement. I knew it, because of that kid. Hearing those words, my mind was pulled back to that night 3 months ago, the night my marriage collapsed. That morning, when I brought Ren home around 6 a.m., Sloane had been up all night waiting. My wife was sitting at the kitchen table, cold coffee in front of her, eyes red from lack of sleep. Seeing me walk in with a strange child, she jumped up. I told her everything. Sloane held the letter in silence. I watched my wife's face go through every emotion. Shock, then pain, then anger, and finally an emptiness more frightening than any rage. Putting the letter down, she said with a shaky voice, You and Noelle, when did that happen? I swallowed hard and answered, 3 weeks before the wedding. Sloane closed her eyes, breathed heavily, then opened them and looked straight at me, shouting, 3 weeks before the wedding, after we'd already put down the deposit at the restaurant, after I'd sent out all the invitations to friends, after I told you I needed a few days at my parents' to think, when I found out you were still in contact with her. I tried to explain. You said you needed to think about our relationship. I thought you were going to call off the wedding. Panicked. I got drunk and called Noelle. My wife cut me off, tears streaming down her face, voice choking. You were here with your ex while I was at my parents', crying all night because I was afraid of losing you. After saying that, she stood up, grabbed her car keys from the counter, and then headed for the door. I desperately called after her, but it was hopeless. My wife stopped at the doorway, didn't turn around, voice cold as ice. You had 7 years to tell the truth. You chose to stay silent. Then she walked out and closed the door. Didn't slam it, just closed it gently. And somehow, that gentle closing tore at my heart more than an angry slam ever could. That was the last time I saw my wife. I pulled myself back to the Christmas dinner table, facing the waiting eyes of my whole family. My voice dropped. Sloane sent a text after that. She wrote, I need time. Don't call. Since then, she won't answer the phone. Not once. My mom was quiet for a moment. I thought she'd scold me, yell at me, say I deserved it. But no, her eyes turned to Ren, full of anger and contempt, as if this innocent 6-year-old was the source of all misfortune. Then suddenly, in the suffocating, tense atmosphere, Josie's clear voice rang out like breaking through ice. Grandma, will you take me to the playground next week as you promised? The whole table seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. My mom turned to her granddaughter, her face softening instantly, and as if seizing the opportunity to change the mood, she started talking about her volunteer work reading to children at the library. Her voice became gentle, warm, utterly different from the sharp coldness just moments before. I thought everything would stop there, but I was wrong. She wasn't changing the mood. She was preparing her weapon. My mom's voice then sounded like she wanted to remind the whole table that she was a good person, a noble person, someone who spent time with less fortunate children. She didn't know that with every word she said, Ren was listening with eyes that lit up. My mom turned to Josie, voice warm. This week I read Charlotte's Web to a group of kids at the library. They loved it. One kid even cried when Charlotte the spider died. Josie squealed, clapping her hands. I love that story too. Read it to me again, Grandma. My mom smiled kindly at her granddaughter, stroking the little girl's hair affectionately. And in that moment, I almost forgot about the cold woman who had just called my daughter that kid a few minutes ago. Then something I never expected happened. For the first time during dinner, Wren looked up. Her eyes lit up, a kind of light that had taken me 3 months to see. She shyly spoke up, quiet but full of hope. Do you read books to little kids too? My mom didn't turn around. She kept talking to Josie like she hadn't heard anything. Wren swallowed, trying one more time, voice trembling with nervousness. My mom used to read books to me, too, before she got sick. I really like books. Still, no one answered. Tessa looked down at her plate. Perry pretended to wipe his mouth with his napkin. My dad stared out the window thoughtfully, as if the weather outside was the most interesting thing in the world. Wren was talking into space, her voice falling to the floor with no one bothering to pick it up. But she still didn't give up, maybe because she was used to being ignored. Maybe because she still had that fragile hope that Grandma would look at her. Wren took a breath, voice tiny but full of longing. I wish someday I could do what you do. Read books to little kids. My mom stopped. She put down her knife and fork. Slowly. Every movement is calculated. Then she turned to look at Wren for the first time all evening, eyes cold as ice in a Colorado winter. Her voice rose, each word sharp as a razor. Where does this little brat come from, thinking she can compare herself to me? My heart stopped beating. I was about to open my mouth, but my mom kept talking, voice full of contempt. You little weed, daughter of a woman who specialized in wrecking other people's families. She leaned toward Wren, voice dropping but each word like a bullet. You will never be allowed to compare yourself to decent people. You hear me? Wren shrank back. The reflex was so fast I knew she'd done this movement hundreds of times before. Her tiny hands gripped her dress tight, like it was the only thing in the world that could still protect her. The eyes that had just lit up seconds ago were now completely dim, only the emptiness of a child used to being hated. She didn't cry. She just sat there, making herself smaller, like she wanted to disappear from the chair. And the most heartbreaking thing was that she whispered 2 words. I'm sorry. I looked at my daughter curled up like a wounded animal, and something in my chest caught fire. 36 years of being the good son in this family. I'd never talked back to my mom. Not once. But that night, I wasn't the good son anymore. That night, I was a father. I stood up, didn't slam the table, because I'd learned that Wren was scared of loud noises. But my voice was colder than anything this house's freezer could produce. I looked straight into my mom's eyes, each word clear, Mom. I won't let you call my daughter that. My mom shot up, face red, voice shrill. Your daughter? That kid who came from nowhere. Daughter of that woman. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, and answered back. Do you know how Noelle left? Alone. In the hospital. No one was by her side. She married Boyd because she thought he'd take care of Wren when she was gone. She was wrong. And my daughter paid the price for 8 months after her birth mom died. My mom was about to interrupt, but I didn't give her the chance. My voice shook with anger. 6 years old, Mom. She used to think getting abused was normal. She used to think she deserved it. And you're sitting here, in this warm house with this fancy dinner, calling her those names? I stopped, swallowed hard, then kept going. The fault here is mine. I betrayed Sloane. I didn't know I had a kid for 6 years. That's my fault. Not Noelle's. And definitely not Wren's. My mom gritted her teeth, voice trembling with rage. You're choosing that kid over your own family? Over your mother? I looked straight into her eyes and answered. If family means watching a 6-year-old who's already been through too much get humiliated in front of everyone, then I don't need that family. My dad finally spoke up, voice low and tired. Declan, calm down. Your mom was just... I turned to Dad, cutting him off. Just what, Dad? You sat there silent the whole time. You think silence is neutral? Staying silent when something's wrong makes you complicit. The room went dead. Tessa looked down. Perry pulled Josie away. My mom stood there, lips pressed tight, eyes blazing red. And while the adults were facing off, no one noticed Wren. I turned back to where my daughter was sitting, and my heart dropped to the floor. The chair was empty. The napkin was neatly folded and placed on the table. The chair was pushed in perfectly, like she'd never been sitting there, like she was used to leaving without a trace. I panicked, looking around, then saw the front door cracked open. Wren's tiny figure was standing on the porch, in the middle of the night, clutching her bunny Clover. I ran out, knelt in front of her, voice choking. "What are you doing out here? Why did you come outside alone?" Wren didn't look at me. She looked down at her little shoes, voice broken. "I came out here to wait for Dad. I don't want to be in there anymore. I bothered everyone." Hearing her answer, something in my chest shattered. I grabbed her shoulders, voice trembling. "Wren, look at me. You didn't bother anyone with what the adults said in there. That's adult business. It has nothing to do with you. Promise." Wren looked up at me, eyes both fragile and searching, like she was trying to read whether my words were real. I stood up, held my daughter's tiny hand tight, then turned back to look at the house. My mom stood in the doorway, my dad behind her. Tessa and Perry stood far away, not knowing what to do. I said, voice calm but final, "I'm leaving. Don't call me." Then I led Wren to the car and didn't look back. Sitting in the car, I turned on the heater. Wren sat in the back seat, silent. I looked at her through the rearview mirror, mind empty, not knowing what to say. Then suddenly, her voice rang out, quiet but clear. "Dad." Not shy, not hesitant. For the first time, she called me Dad naturally, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I turned around and asked, "What is it, sweetie?" Wren hugged Clover tight, eyes starting to well up with tears, whispered, "You won't leave me, will you?" That question crushed my heart. I unbuckled my seatbelt, climbed to the back seat, and pulled her into my arms. And for the first time since I met Wren, she cried. Not the screaming from nightmares in the middle of the night, but the crying of a child who finally felt safe enough to cry. Broken sobs poured out, like all the pain locked away for so long was finally unchained. I held my daughter in the parking lot in front of the house I used to call home, and let my own tears fall onto her hair. For 5 days after that Christmas night, with what seemed like irreparable damage, with dozens of texts and calls with all kinds of hurtful words from the family I'd been close to for nearly half my life, with knots I thought could never be untangled, every night I texted Sloane. I don't know why I kept doing it. For 3 months before that, I tried to find her, called, texted, even drove by her parents' house on the other side of Denver, just to be refused a meeting. But after Christmas night, something was different. I wasn't begging her to come back for me anymore. I just told her about Wren, about how she'd gotten up and left the dinner table without anyone knowing, about the question, "You won't leave me, will you?" in the car in the middle of the night, about her first cry in my arms. I thought if only Sloane would give me one chance, if only she'd see Wren once. I was ready to do anything, even if I had to get on my knees and apologize for the rest of my life. But then I thought, if I fell apart, who would raise her? Who would do her hair every morning? Who would be there when she woke up from nightmares? So I kept going, day by day, until that afternoon. I rushed out to the living room and froze. Sloane was standing at the door. My wife had lost a lot of weight. Her cheekbones were hollow, and dark circles were deep under her eyes. Hair pulled back carelessly. But she was home. She was really home. Wren looked up, saw the strange woman who just walked into the house. She immediately shrank back a little, then said quietly, "Hello." Sloane looked at the child. I knew what my wife was seeing. The little scar on her forehead. The scar I'd written about in those late-night texts. Dark brown eyes exactly like mine. The hunched posture of a child who used to having to protect herself. Sloane swallowed hard, then spoke so gently I barely recognized her voice. "Would you like some hot milk?" Wren was surprised, blinking a few times like she couldn't believe her ears. Then she shyly nodded. Sloane walked into the kitchen. I followed, voice hoarse as I said to her, "Sloane, talk to me?" My wife didn't look at me. She opened the fridge, took out the milk, and put it on the stove. Her hands shook a little. Then she stopped, back still turned to me, voice choking. "Last week, I got my test results. The doctor said I'll never be able to have kids. Less than 1% chance." Painful silence. I didn't know what to say. Sloane turned around, eyes red, whispered, 5 years, Declan. 5 years I begged to be a mom, over $40,000 on treatments. How many times have I hoped, only to be disappointed? How many nights I cried alone because I didn't want you to worry more? She took a deep breath, voice trembling. Then I read your texts, and I realized maybe life didn't let me have a baby, but it put a child who needs me right in front of me. I stepped forward, about to say something, but Sloane held up her hand to stop me. She looked straight into my eyes, each word clear. I don't forgive you. Not yet. It might take a really long time. Maybe I'll never completely forgive you. But that child isn't to blame. She doesn't deserve to pay for adults' mistakes. Sloane poured the milk into a cup, then walked to the living room. She sat down next to Ren, handed her the milk, voice gentle. I'm your dad's wife, and if you want, I want to be by your side, take care of you. Ren held the cup of milk, looked at Sloane, then looked at me, then looked at Sloane again. Her eyes were both confused and full of hope. She spoke in a tiny voice. Can I call you Mom? I miss Mom Noelle, but I'd also like to have a mom here. Sloane smiled, tears streaming down her face. Of course, you can miss Mom Noelle, and you can also call me Mom. Both are okay. Mom, Ren whispered, like she was tasting what that word felt like. Then she slowly leaned forward, shyly hugging Sloane. For the first time, she'd initiated a hug with someone who wasn't me. Sloane held her close, shoulders shaking, and I stood there watching the two of them, one person who'd longed to be a mother for years, and one person who lost her mother when she was too young, finding each other in the wounds life had left behind. That night, for the first time in months, Ren slept peacefully. She slept soundly in her own room, hugging Clover, lips slightly smiling. We still had a long road ahead of us. Sloane and I still needed time. The wounds were still there, but at least, we weren't walking alone anymore. And so, as if someone had arranged it all beforehand, as if Noelle's departure had left us a gift in the middle of the pain, my life kept going. For months after that fateful Christmas night, Sloane's phone suddenly rang. My mom. She asked to talk to me when she found out Sloane had come back. I took the call while sitting building Legos with my daughter, still holding a red piece. In that unexpected call, my mom's voice was shaking. She told me the pastor at church had asked her, "Do you know what that child has been through? You called a wounded child a weed?" She also said she couldn't sleep for many nights after that question. She looked at Josie, her granddaughter, who had loving parents, then looked at the children she read to at the library, and felt terrible about herself. My dad came around after that, too. He didn't say much, just stood at my front door, twisting his hat in his hands, then asked, "Can I take her to the park?" That was his way of apologizing. Tessa and Perry gradually changed too, especially after Sloane posted a photo of all three of us at Disneyland on social media, with the caption, "The daughter who fell from heaven, the delayed happiness of an infertile mother." Thousands of likes, hundreds of blessing comments, and my family, the people who had turned their backs, now had to look at us differently. As for Boyd, the stepfather who caused the scars on my daughter's body, he's currently serving 8 years in prison for child abuse. I don't know when the scar on Ren's forehead will fade, but at least justice was served. The photo of Noelle that Ren kept by her bed is now put away in a drawer. Not because she's forgotten, but because she's ready to move forward. Every year, on Noelle's death anniversary, all three of us still go to the cemetery together to place flowers and talk to her. Because to us, Noelle isn't just someone who passed away. She's the person who gave us the most precious gift. A year passed. Now, we wake up every morning to "Good morning, Dad," Mom echoing from the next room, to Sloane's still slightly shy smile when she looks at me, to my daughter's hugs, and to innocent questions like, "Dad, why are you so big?" Or, "Mom, can I have a dog?" The most normal questions that make both of us burst out laughing. Ren is different now. She knows how to call adults when she needs help. She laughs more, her clear laughter echoing throughout our little house in Lakewood. And what makes me happiest is that she's learned how to make demands, demanding more ice cream, demanding to stay up late watching movies, demanding Sloane do her hair like a princess. These are the most normal things a 7-year-old should get to do. Sloan and I still go to marriage counseling every month. There are sessions where we fight right in the counseling room. Sessions where she cries. Sessions where I cry. But last week, on the drive home, my wife held my hand and said, "I'm learning how to forgive. I'm not there yet, but I'm on that road, and I don't want to stop." Last Christmas, my mom came to our house as a guest. She brought a gift wrapped in red paper, a set of picture books. She sat down next to Ren, voice trembling. "If you want, you can come with me to the library. I'll teach you to read books to the little kids." Ren looked at her for a moment. Then she answered, voice calm, "I want to go." "But Grandma, you called me a weed, didn't you?" I looked it up. Weeds are robust. Weeds can live anywhere. I'm like that too. My mom burst into tears. She hugged her granddaughter tight, tears soaking the little girl's shoulder, mouth stammering. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, sweetie." Ren hugged her back, tiny hand patting Grandma's back. Josie ran over from behind, using her hand to wipe Grandma's tears. Then Tessa, then Perry, then my dad, then Sloan, everyone moved closer together. The whole family hugged in the living room, next to the Christmas tree with blinking lights. And I stood there, looking at everyone, and realized something. Family isn't about blood, and sometimes, a wounded child is the one who teaches a whole family of adults what unconditional love means. If there are a few things I want to share with you through this story, they might be: first, if you know a child is being hurt, speak up. You might be someone's last hope, just like I was Ren's previous hope. Second, if you've made mistakes, dare to own up to them. Never blame innocent people, especially children. They don't get to choose what circumstances they're born into. Third, if you're on a journey to forgive someone or forgive yourself, remember, forgiveness is a journey, not a moment. Just don't stop. If I were you, would I be willing to give up a family I'd been close to for 36 years to protect a child I'd only known for 3 months? Let me know your answer in the comments. If the story touched your heart, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for listening. See you next time. Kids born from abnormal marriages always have problems. That's what my mom said about my 3-year-old daughter. Right on my kid's birthday. Right in front of everyone. The moment those nasty words came out of her mouth, I wasn't staying quiet anymore. All the stuff I'd been bottling up for years just exploded. And my daughter, that little curly-haired kid, she's not the type to be scared of anyone. But that wasn't even everything. My grandma was there too. She heard it all. And she was carrying a 47-year secret that my mom wanted buried forever. This isn't just about family drama. This is about mother-daughter relationships across generations, about what words can do, and about the price you pay when you turn into the exact person who hurt you. Before I dive into this story, let me say thanks from the bottom of my heart. Thanks for spending your time following this story. Hope you have a fantastic day. Hit that like if you want to wish me the same. Hello everyone, I'm Marcus Webb, 32, living in Aurora, Colorado, about a 20-minute drive from downtown Denver. I'm a construction project manager, the kind of job that leaves your hands rough and your back aching, but that pays enough to buy a little house in the suburbs. This story happened exactly 1 year ago, on my daughter Lily's 3rd birthday. My wife, Diana, is a 42-year-old head nurse in the ER. She's 10 years older than me. And that's exactly where all our trouble started. And Lily, she's got this fluffy curly hair, big round eyes, looks cute from a distance. But if you look closely into her eyes, you'll see something sharp, as she'll never bow down to anyone. She's been fierce since she was little. At daycare, the teacher calls to complain all the time. If someone scratches Lily, Lily grabs their hair right back. No crying, no running to the teacher, hits back, and that's it. Diana and I get her. Lily never starts trouble, but if someone messes with her, especially if someone makes her mom sad, they're done for. And my mom specializes in making Diana sad. My mom, Judith, is 67 years old. Every time she says something harsh to Diana, Lily stares at Grandma with eyes sharp as razor blades. Sometimes I wonder if she even understands what Grandma's saying, or if she feels it. 3 years old and she'll look straight into Grandma's eyes. No blinking, no fear. One time, my mom complained to my dad, voice full of irritation. This kid's scary. What kind of little girl is this fierce? The birthday party that day was just a small one at home, with about 15 guests. Diana didn't want to invite my parents. The night before, she grabbed my hand, eyes full of worry, whispering, "Marcus, I'm scared Lily's gonna do something to Grandma." I reassured her, said it's our kid's birthday, everything'll be fine. That was the dumbest promise of my life. But every conflict has its roots. It all started 5 years ago, when I brought Diana home to meet the family for the first time. 5 years ago, when I first brought Diana home, I naively thought my parents would be happy that their 30-year-old son finally decided to love someone seriously. I met Diana at the construction site of St. Anthony Hospital in Lakewood, where she worked as a nurse. She'd just gotten divorced after 12 years of marriage with no kids. Her ex-husband and his family blamed everything on her, calling her a woman who couldn't have children. That comment haunted Diana for years, made her think she didn't deserve to be loved anymore. Then I showed up, a 27-year-old construction worker, hands dirty with cement, mouth too clumsy to know how to flirt. But Diana smiled at me. For the first time in 12 years, she said she felt seen as a human being, not a broken baby-making machine. The night I brought Diana home to meet them, my mom opened the door, looked Diana up and down. She didn't say anything, just smiled that polite smile I knew was fake. My dad, Ray, shook Diana's hand, then quietly sat down in his chair, eyes glued to the TV, as if the guest didn't exist. Dinner went by in awkward silence. My mom was cutting her meat while asking Diana in a voice as sweet as sugar, "Diana, my son told me you've been a nurse for a long time. How long have you been in the field?" Diana hesitated for a second, then gently replied, 15 years now. My mom nodded, lips pressed together like she was calculating in her head. She knew precisely how old Diana was. She put down her knife and fork, turned to me, still keeping that smile on her lips, but her eyes were ice cold. "Marcus, I just want what's best for you. But have you thought about the future? A woman 10 years older than you, only a few years younger than me. Do you know what people will think? They'll say you married your mom's friend, not a wife." Without hesitation, I looked straight into my mom's eyes and answered, "Mom, I love her." The air in the room froze. My mom gritted her teeth. Her eyes went dark, but she still tried to stay calm. She turned to Diana, voice still gentle but every word like a knife. "Diana, don't get me wrong. I don't mean anything by it. I'm just worried about both of your futures. Older women have a hard time having kids, and their health declines fast, too. I'm saying this because I care about my son, you understand." Diana gripped my hand tightly under the table. She didn't say a single word for the rest of the night. That night, on the drive home, Diana cried. I pulled over on Colfax Avenue and pulled her into my arms. The smell of jasmine perfume in her hair mixed with the scent of tears. She whispered into my chest, "Marcus, I'm used to being judged, but I don't want you to have to choose between your mom and me." I lifted her face, looked into those red eyes, and said, "Listen to me, I've already chosen. I choose you, and I won't let you suffer alone. Okay?" That night, for the first time, I felt her heart beating against my chest. Right there on that empty road, in that old car that smelled like motor oil, with a promise I thought I'd keep forever. But the next 3 years proved I was a liar. Our wedding took place at a small church near Denver, with both families and close friends in attendance. The moment I put that ring on Diana's finger, seeing her happy smile, I knew I was right. As for my family, they came and left faster than my monthly paycheck. My mom shook Diana's hand exactly once, took exactly one photo, then dragged my dad to the car, saying they were tired from the long drive. I didn't blame them, but that night Diana cried in the bathroom while I sat outside the door, not knowing what to say. Still, even without my parents' blessing, I chose to stay with the gentlest woman in the world, with someone who taught me that love doesn't need anyone's approval. Do you know what it feels like for a man to love an experienced woman? Diana didn't need me to protect her like some hero saving a damsel. She just needed me to be there, to listen, and to believe that she deserved happiness. And sometimes miracles come to those who wait the longest. 2 years after our wedding, Diana called me while I was at the construction site. Her voice was shaking. "Marcus, I need you to come home, right now." I drove like crazy for 30 minutes from the site to home. All kinds of terrible thoughts went through my head. But when I opened the door, I found Diana sitting on the bathroom floor, holding a pregnancy test, eyes red and puffy. She was 39 years old, after years of being told she couldn't have children, and the pregnancy test showed 2 lines. The following week, we went to the clinic. The doctor applied gel to Diana's belly and moved the ultrasound probe. Then that sound filled the air. Thump, 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 thump. Diana cried with overwhelming happiness. She gripped my hand tight, tried to say something, but could only get out, "Marcus, I thought I'd never." She didn't finish the sentence, and I didn't need her to. When we told my parents the news, my mom was quiet for a while, then said, voice full of fake concern, "Oh, having a baby at that age is really risky. I hope everything goes smoothly, because I've heard a lot of bad stories about late pregnancies." The day Lily was born, my mom came to the hospital, looked at her granddaughter's face, then turned to my dad and said, "She doesn't look like anyone in the Webb family. Must take after her mom's side." Lily grew up and showed her unusual personality. Not the spoiled kid type, but the type who knew precisely what she wanted and wouldn't let anyone push her around. One time at the Walmart on Havana Street, a cashier sighed and shook her head when Diana was fumbling around looking for a coupon in her wallet. Lily was sitting in the cart, looked straight into that employee's face, then turned to hold her mom's hand and said, "Take your time, Mom. It's okay." 3 years old. A gentle sentence, but enough to shut that employee right up. Another time, a neighbor lady came over to visit, made some comment about how Diana looked so tired, probably not getting enough sleep or something to look so worn out. Lily was sitting there drawing when she heard that and immediately stood up, walked over to her mom, hugged Diana's leg, and said, "My mom's the most beautiful." Then she turned back to look at the neighbor lady, didn't say anything else, but her eyes were crystal clear. I heard everything. Sometimes I wonder if she was a royal guard in her past life. Diana looked at our daughter, then turned to me, eyes welling up. Maybe God gave her that personality, because he knew her mom spent her whole life just bowing her head and taking it. I looked at Lily and I understood. She was born with something Diana didn't have, the strength to protect the people she loved. But there was someone who saw that strength as a challenge. And for the past 3 years, I'd been silently watching that person hurt my wife and daughter. And so, even though my family never really accepted Diana, we still tried to maintain the relationship. For 3 years, I told myself things would get better with time. For 3 years, I let a 3-year-old do what I didn't dare to do, until Lily's 3rd birthday, the day everything changed. The party started at 4 in the afternoon. Our living room was decorated with pink and purple balloons, Lily's favorite colors. Diana spent the whole morning baking a cake, decorating it with princess frosting. 15 guests, mainly our friends and neighbors, filled the living room. Lily stood in front of the cake, her eyes bright. Diana clipped a pink bow into her fluffy curly hair, and in that moment, I thought this would be a perfect day. Everyone started singing, "Happy birthday to you." Lily grinned from ear to ear, her cheeks flushed pink with joy. She looked at Diana, then at me, then back at the flickering candle on the cake. Right then, my mom's voice rang out on purpose, loud enough for the whole room to hear. She leaned toward my dad and said, 42 years old and still trying to have kids. I still don't get it." The singing got quieter. A few guests looked at each other awkwardly. My dad nodded, his voice low as he replied, "I never thought this kid was Webb blood anyway." My heart felt like someone was choking it, but I still stood there, my feet nailed to the floor. Then my mom looked straight at Lily, her lips pressed into a contemptuous curve. Kids born from abnormal marriages always have problems. Look at that kid. The room fell silent. Diana stood next to me. I could feel her hand trembling. But before I could react, Lily had already acted. She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't run and hide behind her mom. Lily turned around and looked straight into Grandma's face. Then she stepped down from her chair and slowly walked toward Judith. Each tiny footstep echoed in the dead silent room. She stopped right in front of Grandma, then turned around to protect Diana. Her little hands clenched into fists, back straight, eyes looking directly at Judith. My mom stepped back. For the first time in my life, I saw my mom scared of a 3-year-old. That was also the moment my wife had talked about before the party. If my mom touched our kid, she wouldn't hold back anymore. Diana jumped up, pulled Lily into her arms, voice choked. Calm down, baby. I'm okay. But Lily wouldn't listen. She kept her face turned toward Judith, her eyes never leaving Grandma for a second. Then Diana stood up, the woman who had been silent, who had swallowed her tears every time she was insulted, who had bowed her head and endured from her first marriage until now. That woman finally spoke up. Diana looked straight into my mom's face and said, 3 years. 3 years I've stayed silent, listening to you call me old, unworthy, a burden on your son. I could take that. But my daughter, you just said those things in front of a 3-year-old. On her birthday. Diana's voice shook, but wasn't weak at all. 20 years I lived with the label of not being able to have kids. 20 years of being seen as an incomplete woman. And when the miracle happened, when I finally got to be a mom, you look at my child's face and call her problematic? Diana took a deep breath, asked through her tears, you know why Lily dared to stand up like that? Because she saw her mom getting bullied with no one protecting her. Because she has something I don't have, which is the courage to say no. In that moment, instead of bowing her head, my mom actually laughed coldly, voice like ice. You talk a good game. But don't forget, if it weren't for my son, you'd still be a divorced woman nobody wanted. If it weren't for my son, you wouldn't have a kid to stand here with today. The blood in my body boiled. Right then, the cowardly part of me from the past 3 years suddenly vanished. I stepped forward, stood between my mom and Diana. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from trying to hold back the anger I'd been suppressing for too long. I looked straight into my mom's eyes, my voice so cold I didn't even recognize it. What did you just say? My mom didn't back down. She held her head high, shot back. I said the truth. She should be grateful instead of standing here acting all high and mighty. I felt Diana grab my sleeve, like she wanted to pull me back, but I didn't stop. I took a deep breath, stepped closer to my mom, and asked directly, do you know what the most amazing moment of my life was? My mom stayed silent, her eyes narrowing. I continued, my voice getting lower. It was when I heard Lily's heartbeat for the first time. Diana held my hand in that ultrasound room, crying without making a sound, because she thought she'd never have that moment in her whole life. 20 years, do you understand? 20 years ago, she thought she didn't deserve to be a mom. My voice caught, but I didn't let myself stop. I kept going. Diana doesn't need to be grateful to anyone. I'm the one who should be grateful that she chose me. And today, on your granddaughter's birthday, you look at her face and say she has problems? After that, I pointed toward Lily, who was still standing there, back straight, eyes never leaving Grandma. I continued, look at her. Lily is 3 years old, and she dares to stand up and protect her mom. And me? I've been a coward my whole life, watching you insult my wife and daughter without saying a word. But not today. Today I won't be silent anymore. My mom stepped back, her face going pale. She opened her mouth to say something, but right at the peak of tension, the living room door opened. Everyone turned around. Gloria walked in. My grandma, Judith's mother, is 62 years old. She stood in the doorway, small in stature, but her eyes were sharp as knives. She looked around the room, then stopped at Lily, the child still standing protectively in front of Diana with her fists clenched. The room was dead silent. Gloria looked at my mom, her voice calm but heavy as stone. Judith, I heard everything. My mom's face went white. She stammered, Mom, how long have you been here? Gloria didn't answer. She slowly walked in and closed the door behind her. Then she walked toward Lily, stopped, and looked at her for a long time. A sad smile appeared on her lips. Gloria turned to look at my mom. Her voice soft as a breeze, but every word crystal clear. This little one looks like her grandma. Like Judith when she was 15. Fierce. Wouldn't bow down to anyone. My mom stood frozen like stone. Her hands started shaking. And the 30-year secret was about to be revealed. Gloria walked closer to her great-granddaughter, carrying a brown paper bag. She stopped in front of Lily, and something amazing happened. The little girl's eyes softened. Lily knew her great-grandma. Even though Gloria lived all the way in Arizona, more than 10 hours drive from where we lived, she still called Lily every week. Hour-long video calls where great-grandma told fairy tales, and Lily sat, completely captivated, listening. Gloria opened the paper bag, pulled out some homegrown fruit, a few dried flower stems, and a tiny golden-feathered chick that was peeping softly. Lily squealed, her eyes lighting up. Gigi. Gigi brought me a baby chicken. Gigi. That's what Lily called her great-grandma. Sounded cute, but to her, this was the most important person after her parents. Gloria placed the little chick in Lily's hands, petted her head, then stood up straight. The smile on her face disappeared. She turned to look at me, and the air in the room got thick again. Grandma asked me, her voice calm. Marcus, do you know how old your mom was when she had you? I hesitated. That's when I started doing the math in my head. My mom always said she was 50. Always told me she had me after graduating from college. And me, the dumb son, had never paid attention to her paperwork. Never wondered why there weren't any graduation photos in the house. I answered, 20-something? Grandma shook her head, her eyes never leaving my mom, and said loudly, 15. Your mom got pregnant when she was 15. The room felt like all the air had been sucked out. A few guests gasped. Diana gripped my hand tightly, and I stood there, feeling like someone just punched me in the gut. My mom was trembling, her voice lost when she asked, Mom, why are you talking about this here? Grandma didn't answer the question. She continued, her voice steady like she was reading an old story. Judith was still in high school when she found out she was pregnant. The neighbors were gossiping, calling my daughter all kinds of nasty names. She paused, glanced at my dad sitting frozen in his chair, and continued. And Ray, that 17-year-old kid sitting over there, heard the news and took off running. Thought he could hide. She laughed bitterly, kept going. But my daughter wasn't some pushover. Judith chased after him, grabbed him by the hair, dragged him back to my house, and said right to his face, You made this mess, you deal with it. Don't even think about running. My dad hung his head down. His ears were red. He was 52 that year, but right then, he looked like a kid who got caught stealing candy. Grandma looked at Lily holding the little chick, then turned back to my mom, asked, Do you see it? Judith was fierce back then. Anyone trying to bully her, anyone trying to run away, she wouldn't let them. Exactly like Lily now. My mom backed up, her back hitting the wall. My grandma continued, her voice soft but each word like a hammer blow. That year, I didn't kick her out. I held her close, raised both her and my grandson, because I knew that fierceness wasn't being bad. That was how she survived. She pointed toward Lily, whispered, My great-granddaughter is just as fierce as my daughter was back then. Won't let anyone bully her mom either. That fierceness helped you get through the hardest years. So now you're standing here, hating your own granddaughter because she's just like you? My mom couldn't say anything. Tears started streaming down her face. Grandma looked straight into her daughter's eyes, then continued, You don't hate Diana because of her divorce. You hate her because she's only 5 years younger than you. Every time you look at her, you see yourself getting old. And you hate Lily because she's exactly like you at 15. That fierce part that won't bow down. The part you've been trying to hide your whole life. My mom broke down crying. Not the restrained crying like usual. She sobbed, her shoulders shaking in waves. For the first time in my life, I saw my mom really cry. My dad still sat there, head down, not daring to look anyone in the eye. 17 when he became a father, 52 and still didn't know how to be a man. Lily stood there, holding the little chick, watching Grandma cry. Her face softened a bit. But But she still stood protecting Diana. That protective instinct was in her blood now. A few guests quietly got up and left the room. Nobody wanted to stick around to witness more. I looked at my mom sobbing, then looked at my daughter standing there protecting my wife. 3 generations of women. The same fierceness. But one person had forgotten who she used to be, and I had to make a decision. Protect the person standing or forgive the person who had fallen. I picked Lily up. She still held the little chick tight in her hands, eyes never leaving Grandma. Then I turned to Diana, pulled her close, and used my finger to wipe the tears from her cheek. My hand was shaking, but this time not from fear. I looked at my mom and said, my voice calmer than ever, Mom, I love you. I'll always love you because you gave birth to me, raised me. My mom looked up after that, eyes red and puffy, like she was waiting for forgiveness. But I didn't stop. I continued, each word clear. But Diana is my wife. Lily is my daughter. This is my family now. If you can't respect them, then you need to leave here today. The room was silent. My mom looked at me, then at Diana, then at Lily. She didn't say anything. Seeing that, Diana stepped forward and opened the door. She didn't say a word either. Didn't need to. My dad stood up after realizing he needed to do something right for once, grabbed my mom's hand, and pulled her toward the door. But when they got to the doorway, my mom stopped. She turned her head to look at Lily, voice choked as she called out, Grandma. Lily looked at Grandma, silent for a moment. Then she spoke in a small but clear voice. You made my mom cry. Just a few words, but enough to make my mom bow her head. After what the little girl said, my mom quietly walked away, shoulders shaking. My dad followed behind, head hanging low. The door closed, and the room suddenly felt so much lighter, like someone had just thrown open the windows after a storm. That night, when the uninvited guests had left, we stayed with Grandma and a few close friends. We lit the candles again, sang happy birthday once more for a little girl who was older than her years. Lily grinned from ear to ear, blew out the candles, and made a wish. She didn't say what that wish was, but I saw her eyes glance toward Diana, probably a wish for her. After Lily finished cutting the cake, Grandma stayed to help Diana clean up and told funny stories to Lily. Then, when the party was over, she called a cab to my parents' house. Before getting in the car, she hugged me and whispered, a mother will always be there for her child at their weakest moment. Like how I was there for your mom when she was 15. Like how I'll be there for your mom tonight. Hearing that, I understood. Even though my mom had done wrong, she was still Grandma's daughter. When the sound of the taxi faded away, when Lily was fast asleep with the little chick curled up in a toy basket bed beside her, Diana and I finally had a quiet moment to ourselves. We sat on the porch, neither of us saying anything. After a while, Diana leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, you know, my whole life I wished I could be brave like Lily. Maybe that's why God gave her to me. I held her tighter, didn't answer. Sometimes silence is enough. And 1 year later, our lives changed in ways nobody expected. After that birthday night, an invisible thread between my parents and me had been cut. I know some people would call me ungrateful. I know some people would say I was heartless, kicking my own parents out of the house on my granddaughter's birthday. But they weren't the ones who watched their wife cry in the bathroom for 3 years. They weren't the ones who saw their 3-year-old daughter standing up for her mom because her dad was too much of a coward to do it. In the first few weeks, my dad called a few times. All late-night calls were made when my mom was already asleep. He told me that mom was having a tough time. She felt guilty. She checked my social media every day, saw photos of Lily laughing brightly next to Diana, then cried. My mom texted too, both Diana and I. Long messages, explaining, justifying, asking to meet. But we didn't respond. We weren't ready. My grandma, Lily's great-grandma, went back to her little house in Arizona after staying in Colorado for a week. Before leaving, she took my hand and said, your mom will still be your mom, Marcus. That'll never change. But you have the right to walk away from toxic things. You have the right to protect your family. I hugged her, didn't say anything. Sometimes silence is the only way to say thank you. And I had chosen. I chose to cut ties with people who didn't know how to say sorry. But life's never that simple. 3 months after Lily's birthday, Grandma called with news nobody saw coming. My mom was pregnant, 48 years old. Unplanned. Grandma told me that when she found out, my mom cried for a whole week, not from joy, from fear. She was scared her body wasn't strong enough anymore. She was afraid of what people would say. She was worried that the very words she'd said about Diana would come back to haunt her. I didn't know what to feel when I heard that news. Part of me wanted to laugh bitterly. My mom used to say that Diana having a baby at 40 was reckless. Now she was 48. But then she decided to keep it. She told Grandma this was her chance to make things right. A chance to start over. The pregnancy didn't last. 5 months after Lily's birthday, Grandma called again, her voice much lower. Your mom lost the baby, Marcus. I sat in silence. Couldn't say anything. Grandma sighed, then continued. Even though she's devastated, maybe that's what your mom needed to go through. She gets it now. She understands what it feels like to carry a life inside you and then lose it. She understands what it feels like to have the whole world look at you like you don't deserve it. Grandma paused for a moment, then added, Your mom cried with me all night. She said she understands Diana now. A few days later, my dad called. This time, not late at night. He said Mom wanted to talk to me. My mom's voice over the phone was completely different. No more arrogance. No more harshness. Just the voice of a woman who was exhausted after too much loss. My mom said to me, each word slow, Son, I get it now. Diana endured that for 20 years. And I only dealt with it for 2 months and was ready to give up. I stayed silent, listening. Mom's voice choked up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to Diana. I'm sorry to Lily. I'm sorry to you. That night, I told Diana about it. She sat quietly for a long time, then took my hand and said, You should go visit your mom. I looked at her in surprise. Diana smiled gently, her eyes soft. She whispered, I don't want to use her pain for revenge. Doing that would make me just like she used to be. A week later, I drove to the little house in Lakewood, where my parents had lived for 30 years. My mom had lost a lot of weight, but her eyes looked at me completely differently. No more judgment, just regret. She handed me a postcard and asked me to give it to Lily. Along with it was an old black and white photo, a bit blurry. In the photo was a 15-year-old girl, pregnant, looking straight into the camera lens. Fierce, wouldn't bow down. On the back of the postcard, my mom wrote messily to Lily, I'm sorry, you're a lot like me. Don't ever change. That's when all the conflicts started to heal. That evening, when I gave Lily the photo, she stared at it for a really long time. Then she took the picture up to her room, placed it neatly on her headboard, next to her old teddy bear and a feather from Nugget the chicken that she'd found last summer, the place for the most important things. The next morning, Lily ran down to the kitchen while I was making coffee. She tugged on my hand, eyes clear, asked, Dad, can I go visit Grandma? I heard Mom say she's sick. In that moment, I realized something. Mistakes don't disappear just because time passes. But forgiveness doesn't either. It doesn't come from forgetting. It comes from choosing to move forward. The following week, our whole family drove to Lakewood. Lily brought along a drawing she'd made herself, a picture of Grandma and Nugget the chicken. When my mom opened the door, Lily stood behind my legs, cautiously watching Grandma. She still kept her distance. That protective instinct was still there. My mom knelt, eye level with her granddaughter. She spread her arms wide, voice trembling. I'm sorry, my curly-haired princess. Lily stood there for a moment, looking at Grandma. Then she stepped forward and hugged her. That was the first time in 4 years they hugged like that. That afternoon, my mom led Lily to the backyard and picked some wildflowers to put in her fluffy, curly hair. The two of them took photos together, Lily grinning from ear to ear, my mom smiling too, the relieved smile of someone who'd just been forgiven. That photo was later framed by my mom and hung right in the living room. Next to it was our wedding photo. Maybe that's how a middle-aged person fixes their mistakes. Not with words, but with small actions. Each photo, each hug, each afternoon, she puts flowers in her granddaughter's hair. A year has passed since that fateful birthday. Lily's 4 now. That little chick from back then is all grown up. Every morning Lily goes out to feed Nugget, comes home in the afternoon, and tells her about preschool. My grandma still calls Lily every week. The two of them still talk for hours. I wonder what they have to talk about for so long. And my mom, she visits us once a month. She's learning to cook dishes Lily likes. She's learning to compliment Diana rather than criticize her. She's learning how to be a grandma. Slowly. One step at a time. If you ask me what lesson I learned from this story, I'd say this: 1. Staying silent to keep the peace isn't always right. Sometimes, it takes a 3-year-old to remind us what courage looks like. 2. People who've been judged sometimes become the cruelest judges themselves, because they don't want to face their own past. 3. Loving someone doesn't mean you have to endure abuse from them. And forgiveness takes just as much courage as protection. Right now, Lily's playing in the yard with Nugget. She turns back to look at me and flashes a smile. Her eyes are still as sharp as ever, ready to stand up if anyone dares to mess with her mom, but also prepared to forgive if that person knows how to say sorry. Grandma once told me, kids don't owe adults a chance to make amends, but sometimes kids teach adults how to live. Lily taught me that loving someone doesn't mean bowing your head. Protecting the people you love sometimes requires a little fierceness, but forgiveness takes just as much courage. Thanks for staying with me until the end of the story. Before I finish, I want to ask you, if you were me, would you forgive your family? If you were Lily, would you accept that hug from someone who hurt you? If this story touched your heart, please share it with people who need to hear it. And if you have your own story, leave a comment below. See you in the following stories.